If your church uses the free 123 materials, church pastors will be offered a $300 scholarship application to attend a marriage retreat. Learn more at blessyourpastor.org. That's blessyourpastor.org.
Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thanks for listening to AFR. On this Wednesday, October the 25th, 2023, joining me in studio no, Ed's gone. So Fred Jackson. Good morning, Fred.
Good morning. And if Ed was here, he would remind everybody we're the 25th of October. That means 8 weeks to Christmas.
That's exactly.
And get your shopping days in there.
8 more weeks of Christmas till Christmas. How you doing, Christopher?
I'm doing well. In honor of Ed's absence, I have laid out 2 cough drops side by side.
Chris Woodward.
Where they go.
Chris Woodward. Okay, so Ed's not here. I think we can talk about him.
One for me and one for my homie.
Am I right? You can talk about people when they're not with you, you know.
That's right.
And Ed's probably not listened to the show. Nor will any of our listeners email him and tell him that Tim, Fred, and Chris were talking about him. But we tease him because he's would you call him mildly OCD? Is that the right? What's that short for?
Obsessive compulsive disorder.
Okay. Well, I don't know if that. I don't. I know we've all got disorders, but
we've all got a thing.
Whatever this is. So Ed. Every day he lines up about 10 cough drops.
Yes, and very neatly.
Yes, very neatly, very meticulous, and they're in a certain design. And so they're right next to his. They're where you're sitting right now.
Right there.
Yeah. So we tease him about that.
Yes, and every now and then our producer Brent Creeley threatens to go like that.
Yeah, to shake them up. Yeah. And if they start, if you accidentally hit them or move them, he gets really.
That's right.
Frustrated. And so I don't know what that disorder is, but that's what happened. That's what we're kidding about right
I just sent him I took a picture and I sent it to him.
Oh, no.
He's on vacation, Chris. You shouldn't be bothering him.
Okay, I didn't know that.
No, that's okay.
Let me delete.
Too late.
I need IT in here to delete a text message.
I texted him last night. He was watching the Bruins, the Boston Bruins NHL game. Yeah, he and his wife, they got out of town for a few days.
Good.
All right. Well, listen, thanks for joining us, and whatever disorder you have, work on it today. Try to become a better person.
I'm going to talk about that with Dr. Nurse Mama.
I'm going to go full Joel Osteen on you. Become a better person today.
There you go.
Look in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
What did you say? You Dr.
I said I'm going to talk about this with Dr. Nurse Mama.
Oh, yeah, our new show.
Yes.
All right. Let's see. Anything to get out of the way here before we move into the news? Do we have any guests today? No guests today.
No.
So it's just us 3, fellas.
We're going at it.
Better do our best here. Go ahead, Chris.
Well, we think we may have a House Speaker possibly by the end of today.
I'm going to spit out my coffee right there with that one.
Representative Mike Johnson is the latest GOP nominee for House Speaker. We have the story on our website, afn.net. Johnson is a congressman from Louisiana, and his name made it into the mix last night because the guy that Republicans did have a closed-door meeting and agreed on was Congressman Tom Emmer of Minnesota, a ranking member of Congress there in the Republican Party. So just for people that might not have paid attention to news yesterday, around lunchtime, Tom Emmer's name enters the mix as the guy. And then a few hours after that, Tom Emmer has decided he's going to drop out of the race, and they're going to have to go back to square one. I have a lot of audio here. Let's begin with this one. It's Congressman Mike Flood of Nebraska on Fox News just after Tom Emmer dropped out. Clip 1.
Tom Emmer let the conference know that he was withdrawing, that he wants to be the best whip he can be. I knew something was up when I walked into the room and we had the voting pencils back on the seats. I thought that's a little odd. When we left here at 2 o'clock, we had nominated a speaker designate, and he quickly withdrew. And Patrick McHenry, our Speaker Pro Tem, he's taking over the process now, and he says we need to regroup and figure out what we do next.
Now,
who was that?
That was Representative Mike Flood of Nebraska on Fox News.
Okay.
After this news breaks, I then switch over to Newsmax to see how they're covering the Emmer exit. And here now is Newsmax reporter Kimberly Duckhart reading off some of the reaction from Republicans and talking about how important it is that the GOP fills this position. Clip 2.
Congressman Bill Huizenga said this is a dumpster fire. Texas Congressman Michael McCall says he's embarrassed for the state of the party. And there are high stakes here on the line. There are those funding requests that are urgently being asked for Israel as well as for Ukraine. And there's also a federal government shutdown looming next month.
Now, since those two segments, Republicans got back together, had another meeting in private, and they've decided that Congressman Mike Johnson, again of Louisiana, is going to be their nominee for House Speaker. They could vote today.
Okay. I feel like we're living in Bill Murray's Groundhog Day. Huh?
You too?
The Republicans keep voting, and they don't get enough votes, and then we go back to the hotel and get up and do the same thing the next day. Reference there to Bill Murray's character. Mm-hmm. So let me get this straight, Chris, if you can get this straight for me. You have to get a certain number of votes to become Speaker of the House amongst the whole body.
Correct.
Democrats, Republicans included. This isn't an election among Republicans themselves to be Speaker of the House.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So the Republicans have been putting up people. We've gone through, McCarthy got booted. Then you got Jim Jordan. Was there somebody else?
Jim Jordan was the guy they trucked out there last week.
But there was nobody?
But Scalise.
Yeah, Scalise.
Scalise earlier had won inside the room, in the Republican room. And then it became obvious that he wasn't going to win on the floor.
Right.
That's when they went to Jim Jordan.
Right. So you can't afford to lose but 5 votes, I think, or so. You can't afford to lose among your own party.
Right.
So that's where we are. Mike Johnson, the latest nominee from Louisiana, you're saying that he's been elected by the Republicans themselves, and is his nomination going to go out to the floor?
It is today.
Yes. Okay, then I'm going to predict he wins.
Yeah,
and he's Speaker of the House. The reason I say that is, I don't think the Republicans are dumb enough. And listen, they can be dumb too. And I would say with the Democrats, though, it's a case of dumb and dumber. Dumber being the Democrats, but I think I don't think they're so dumb as to go out and go through this whole circus again if they don't know in advance that Mike Johnson has the votes.
Yeah.
Jim Banks, congressman from Indiana, was just interviewed a few moments ago on Fox. He said he's very optimistic that Mike Johnson will be elected today when the vote goes before the whole House. Now, there was a vote last night in the room of just the Republicans. There were over a dozen that were absent or voted not whatever that was. So we'll have to wait and see. If I was a betting man, I would not put down big dollars yet. But Jim Banks, as I say, and others are fairly optimistic that this time they have a winnable candidate. We will wait and see. We should know by late this afternoon, correct?
We should. And I've said that to Robert Thornton, our afternoon anchor, for a week now.
Yes.
But we should. We
yes.
should.
Now, I was Mike Johnson. I don't know Congressman Johnson personally, but I do know a lot of people who do know him personally. I think Abe's a good friend of his. Okay. Abraham Hamilton III. I think I'm right about that. He's from Louisiana. Abe's from Louisiana. But anyway, and nobody has anything but glowing things to say about him on a personal level, as far as his Christian testimony, his character, and also his effectiveness as a member of the House of Representatives.
Yes.
So
he's pro-life.
He's pro-life. He's very well liked by people, the members. He's I think he's the kind of person, it sounds like to me, that can bridge the people maybe who are in more moderates, you would say, to people who are more conservative. Johnson being very conservative, but still I think he is the kind of person, it sounds like to me, who could bridge that gap and get enough votes to put him over the top and be Speaker of the House of Representatives by the end of the day. We'll see.
Yes.
If they don't, it's going to be downright depressing.
The two other people that he supposedly was up against last night were Representative Kevin Hern of Oklahoma and Representative Byron Donalds of Florida, a freshman member of Congress, but somebody we talk a lot about and we have comments.
Yeah, you're just not. Donalds is. He's has a great record as far as his voting record and such. Very conservative.
Yeah, hangs out with Chip Roy on a lot of issues.
Yes.
I heard him speak at the recent Pray Vote Stand Summit.
Yeah,
so he does.
He's got a great future in the Republican Party, but his problem right now, he's only been in office 2 years.
Yeah,
you're just not going to get the support of members to be your speaker if you've only been there 2 years. I just think it's a real too hard an uphill climb because people within the caucus, as they call it, don't feel you have enough experience because you got to be able to negotiate with Democrats. You got to be able to herd your own cats in the Republican Party. You got to be able to speak publicly on a daily basis. I mean, the Speaker of the House, whoever it is, they're going to get as much attention as the President of the United States oftentimes. Am I right?
Yes. We saw that with Kevin McCarthy.
Yeah.
He was out front almost every day.
Yeah. So, anyway, we'll see. Mike Johnson from Louisiana is the favorite. Let's see. A text. Okay. Hold on a second. You guys talk amongst yourselves. I'm getting a text here that's important.
Okay. Well, for those that didn't catch it yesterday, former Congressman, now FRC executive Jody Heiss was on the program yesterday. I'll share the podcast link here in a moment. The reason we had Jody on was to talk about the speaker's race, but also we asked him whether or not there might be some Republicans that would side with Hakeem Jeffries as House Speaker. Hakeem Jeffries is the Democrat that Democrats want to be House Speaker, even though Republicans have a majority. And for anybody concerned as to whether or not some Republicans might side with Jeffries over Johnson or whoever it may be, former Congressman Jody Heiss, a Republican, said there's no chance that a Republican is going to side with Jeffries, who has run now for about 18 or 19 tries to be House Speaker, while Republicans have this soap opera airing out in the swamp.
Well, Jeffries is every bit as liberal as Nancy Pelosi, maybe even more so to the left.
He's the new Pelosi.
He is, very much so. So I don't see that happening. Now, the Democrats certainly are celebrating the mess that the Republicans have demonstrated so far.
Right.
But now I'm hoping Jim Banks is right, that they finally put an end to this and they're able to get themselves a speaker. Because as Tim was just pointing out, there's some important business that has to be done. There is the issue of funding for Israel, and there's also the overall budget matter that's coming up that's so important.
Yeah, it's very important that Republicans get somebody in there because Republicans have been wanting to do pro-life measures. Now that we're in a post-Roe world, you're not going to get anything pro-life done with a Democrat in charge of the House. So they do need to sort this out.
Fellas, but Tony Perkins, president of the Family Research Council, is on the phone with us. Good morning, Tony.
Good morning, Tim. How y'all doing?
We're doing well. I texted you 90 seconds ago and asked you, could you be on with us? And
wow, that's a quick response.
You get quick results. when Tim calls, I respond.
Are you in Baton Rouge or D.C. today?
I'm in the South today.
Okay.
I flew back into the South where it's a little less chaotic.
All right, let me ask you. I know you only got a couple minutes here. Mike Johnson, the congressman from Louisiana, I know you're friends of his, and he's supported by a lot of pro-family conservative leaders. What I don't know what all you can say, but talk about him and talk about his chances today of being selected and voted on.
Well, Mike has been a friend of mine for about 25 years, going back to when he was in law school. And just give you, he's a strong follower of Christ. I've worked with him on a number of issues over the years. In fact, when I passed one of the nation's first Abortion Clinic Regulations Act back in the late 90s, he was the attorney working with a client getting me the information I needed to pass that law. He's pro-life, pro-family. He actually argued successfully in federal court Louisiana's marriage amendment a number of years ago when it was challenged in court. He's a constitutional attorney that fights for religious freedom, and he's proven himself quite strong as a leader in Congress, and he's able to bring people together. So I think his prospects are pretty good. This has been something that's been in the works for a while, as they've tried to find a leader, and they have not been able to find somebody that could bring the very divided caucus together. And he did that last night, and I think he'll do it today when he goes to the floor in just about an hour and a half for the vote. I think the prospects are very good, but we have to realize there's a lot of factors here. And Tim, I'll just say that part of it is the spiritual factors of the darkness of our day. And you've got to have a speaker who understands the spiritual perspective of things, and he has that understanding. And I think that's why he's positioned to lead the Congress forward and be an influence in the country in the days in which we're in.
What part of the state does he represent?
Well, he's almost a Yankee. He's up there in Shreveport.
He's one of those I-40 people.
Okay, so he represents the northwest part of the state.
Yeah, northwest part of the state.
Gotcha. So, are you saying? I know you got to go. You got just another minute or two. So, are you saying that he will go? His name will be put before the entire House of Representatives this afternoon?
Yeah. Yeah, what happened last night? They agreed to the conference rallied around him, and there was enough votes to advance him. And they feel very confident.
Okay.
Go to the floor and get the 200. And I'm not sure exactly. Depends on how many are in the chamber, but the magic number normally is 217. They feel like they can get that, and then he will be installed as speaker. Now, here's the situation. Why this is so critical is that the fallback after they've exhausted all of these different candidates, the fallback at this point would be to give authority to Patrick McHenry from North Carolina to be the speaker until January. And there's many conservatives that find that just intolerable. I would include myself because he doesn't have a really, really good record. So this is, the stage is set for this. And if we can't get this across the line at this point, the Congress is going to be in trouble.
Well, if this doesn't happen, you and I are going up there, take care of some business, going office to office.
We're going to bring the Tupelo Brigade.
Anyway, no, I think you get in trouble for that. I think I've seen that on TV before. Mm-hmm. Anyway, listen, Tony.
Yeah.
I love the idea of Mike Johnson being the Speaker of the House from Louisiana. And we need a leader who's a Christian. We need a leader who has conviction. We need a leader who can. It's a skill to bring people together.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
You listen. This is not a dictatorship, folks. You got people from all over the country within the Republican Party who have different views, different backgrounds, and you do have to build a consensus on issues.
Right.
So you need somebody that's able to has that kind of personality and that's kind of skill set.
And you know, Mike's is on Washington Watch frequently, so
yes.
the listeners of AFR are familiar with him. But this is, I'll leave you with this, Tim, is asking people to pray right now in the next hour and a half as this goes to the floor of the Congress. This could present, and the left knows this, the enemy knows this, and I'm talking about our spiritual enemy at this point, understands the dynamics of someone bringing the light of truth into this position. and not just knowing it, but being willing to fight for it. So we need to be praying over the next hour and a half that this comes forth.
All right. Hey, thank you, Tony. Take care. Maybe if this goes through and happens, maybe tomorrow you can be on with us, and maybe you can help us get well, you'll have him on your show, I know, the congressman who may be the speaker. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. Be blessed.
Right. Thank you.
care.
Thank you.
So
that's a great endorsement.
yeah,
It really is. And to hear that he is not just a nominal Christian, but a Christian who acts on Christian values.
Yeah.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, Mike Johnson. We're talking about Mike Johnson, the congressman from Louisiana. That was Tony Perkins from Louisiana telling us that it looks like the congressman will be the next Speaker of the House of Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Yes.
So we'll see how that vote goes.
It would be nice to get an ending to this because we could use one less breaking news story.
Well, also, in all seriousness, the Republicans, they need a leader because, listen, the world's on fire, right?
Yes.
And also, you need somebody that's going to be able to speak out and speak clearly and do a good job in articulating the Republicans' position on issues. I would say the conservative position on issues.
Yeah, you don't need a divided House right now. Not with everything that's going on globally, but we're into the 24 election campaign right now.
Yeah.
And you've got one team that's publicly very divided at the moment.
Yeah.
And that team is the one that's supposed to represent conservative Christian values.
Right.
So they've got to get their act together because we've got a huge battle coming up over the next 12 months.
Yeah. And the Democrats, they got an earthquake going on of their own.
Yes.
Over the Palestinian-Israel divide.
Yeah. There's that issue. And at a time you needed a team that's got its act together because, quite frankly, there are a lot of targets right now on the Democrats' back. The economy.
Yeah.
It's a big one.
Yeah.
Bidenomics. There was a report the other day where the Democrats are regretting calling it Bidenomics because things aren't going well in the economy right now, folks. We did a story yesterday, Tim, when you were away, about the defaults on auto loans are at a 30-year high. This is just another indication.
You mean people saying I can't make my
car
note?
Can't make my car payments.
Because
grocery bills, all of those things.
Right.
Bidenomics isn't working.
Right.
And he's lovingly embraced it. Remember, early on, he embraced it, and he said, put me in and help me finish the job.
Yeah.
Not to mention the border.
Well, and crime.
Yes.
People are really worried about the crimes out of control. That's not necessarily a federal issue, more of a state and local issue, but still that the soft on crime image is well deserved by the Democrat Party, generally speaking. So you got, and then the border issue. Wow, I saw yesterday where New Yorkers they're very upset about the illegal immigration that's affected their city. Over 120,000 and more coming every day.
Right.
And so, but yet the Democrat governor and the Democrat mayor, they want to blame Governor Abbott of Texas. So silly. Yeah. Because it's their guy in the White House that's let all this happen.
And not to mention the fact of the threat that there are terrorists that are coming into this country through our southern border. Yeah.
You're right. Our country is in a mess in a lot of ways, and we need a leader for conservative values in the House of Representatives. And I think Mike Johnson is that guy. And so I hope he'll be elected Speaker of the House later on today. Hope tomorrow we can be sitting here going, the new Speaker of the House of Representatives is Mike Johnson of Louisiana.
Yes.
All right, we're going to take a short time out. We'll be back momentarily with more of today's issues.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
For whoever would save his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life for my sake, he will save it. James White, 44, thought his civilian job at McClellan Air Force Base was a waste of time and money, doing the opposite of what most folks would have done. Mr. White took pencil and paper in hand and began to write a suggestion for the suggestion box. He told the U.S. government that the abolishment of his position as an inventory management specialist was in the best interest of all concerned. Now, that's something the average fellow wouldn't do. The average fellow would try to hang on as long as possible, but then Mr. White wasn't an average fellow. The suggestion bounced through bureaucratic channels for several months until it finally reached the Air Force Logistics Command at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. And along the way, no doubt caused many an eyebrow to be raised and perhaps caused many a chuckle to boot. At Wright-Patterson, someone appreciated his idea and agreed with him. So in a short time, White's job was scrapped. There was no longer an opening for an inventory management specialist. There's an old law which says that one has to lose himself to find himself. Mr. White's actions were an example of that law being put into practice. He considered the job an unnecessary burden on the taxpayers. He saw a better way of getting the job done, and he was willing to risk his source of livelihood for the betterment of his employer. He'd gotten self out of the way and put a desire to do what was best above himself. All of us could benefit from such an example, for many of us have never lost ourselves. We think of ourselves as the number one player in this game of life, and our thoughts hardly ever go beyond ourselves. We would seldom think there would be a better way of doing what we're doing, and certainly would not suggest it if there were. We might lose what we're doing. One day, years ago now, a carpenter told some friends of his that if they would lose themselves, they could find themselves. In fact, he said one could never find his true self until he had lost himself. And he went on to say that the person who was continually looking out for old number one would inevitably lose what he did have. The principle is true not only in religion, but in the whole of life. When you're willing to lose, then you're ready to find. And I guess many of us are concerned about James White. We nearly always worry over those who lose themselves in service to others, but we shouldn't. It's true, White lost his job as inventory management specialist. But he got a check for $1,000 for his suggestion and was promoted to supervisor. He lost himself to find himself and a better job. You know, truth is truth in whatever area you find it.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
One thing I ask from the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple. Psalm 27:4.
American Family Radio. This is Today's Issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of Today's Issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of Today's Issues.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Today's Issues. That's the name of this program on the American Family Radio Network. We're here Monday through Friday. Thanks for listening to AFR. I'm Tim Wildman with Fred Jackson and Chris Woodward. Ray's away and Ed's away, and so it's just us three.
Yes.
Today. And if you missed the first half hour, Tony Perkins, president of the Family Research Council, was on with us a few minutes ago telling us that, well, I don't want to misquote Tony. Did he say that Mike Johnson from Louisiana will be elected Speaker of the House?
He is cautiously optimistic.
Okay. Later today.
And fully endorses Mike Johnson. He's a Christian.
Yeah.
And he lives that Christian life in his political life.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll see what happens about that with that situation. And Tony said if he totally and completely endorsed my Tupelo Brigade that'll be headed out this afternoon. We'll just call people from all over the country to. Wait a minute, that's already been tried. Didn't better not do that.
Yes.
No, for a peaceful.
Yes.
Peaceful rally, Fred.
Yeah, peaceful rally.
Mostly.
Peaceful rally.
That's right.
All right, Chris, go ahead. Move on.
Well, this is a concerning story. I do not have the audio. I can only share what news outlets, including Fox News, are saying here. There is a story, and I'll share the link. Turkish President Erdogan.
Erdogan. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
He referred to Hamas terrorists yesterday as a, quote, liberation group trying to protect the Palestinian people. Again, this is Fox News saying he said this. In an address to his ruling party's legislators on Wednesday, the Turkish president also said he has canceled plans to visit Israel as part of his country's policy of normalizing its relations with the Jewish state, adding that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had, quote, misused our goodwill. He continued. He went on to sharpen his criticisms of Israel, describing the siege of Gaza as one of the bloodiest, most disgusting, and most savage attacks in history. This is the president of Turkey, which, oh, by the way, is a member of NATO, criticizing Israel.
Yeah.
Troubling, but not surprising.
Yeah.
Because remember back a couple of weeks ago, right after the October 7th massacre, there were reports out there that Turkey had offered some of these Hamas terrorists passports, Turkish passports, so they could travel to various places. So Turkey has been a suspected ally, has been kind of nice to Israel from time to time, but it's always been suspect of actually being friends with the terrorists that run Gaza, the Hamas terrorists. Always been troubling. And to call them, what was the phrase he used?
A liberation group.
A liberation group, referring to a terrorist group that just massacred 1,400 men, women, and children in Israel as a liberation group? That says a lot.
Yes. Now, Turkey, while a member of NATO, they're Muslim country.
Yes.
And so the NATO is basically made up of European countries that are not Muslim.
Right.
Okay. I can't think of another one that is majority Muslim other than Turkey. When did Turkey join NATO? Was it like 10 years ago or something like that?
I looked it up.
Recent history.
Yeah. They're the latest one, I think.
I actually saw something that's it goes back as far as the February 18th, 1952, when they kind of started the groundwork. So it goes back decades, it looks like.
All right, so that is troubling. You have the president or leader, I don't know what he's called, what his proper title is, of Turkey.
Mm-hmm. Who's the president?
President, and he's saying that Hamas is a liberation group.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hamas is a terrorist organization.
According to our own government.
Yeah, yeah. They're the ones who butchered, slaughtered 1,400 Israelis.
Yes.
October the 6th.
They are brutal. And even some of the Hamas members that have been taken into custody by the Israelis have confessed to acting like madmen. And they've also talked about taking drugs that basically nullified any conscience of what they were doing. And we've seen more and more videos, especially on Fox News, of the atrocities, what they carried out in those attacks on those communities, those kibbutz in that area of southern Israel, what they did to men, women, and children. I've never seen or heard reports of that kind of behavior before.
I would ask if you could sit down in a room and talk about things in the open with these leaders who condemn Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you could start by like this fella here, this president of Turkey and others. I think you can start with a premise, a question that would define the conversation, whether there needs to be a continuing of the conversation at all, and that is this. Do you believe Israel has a right to exist as an independent country, an independent Jewish country? Yes or no?
Mm-hmm.
And if they say no, well, at least you know where they stand,
Mm-hmm.
and you can. There's really no need to continue to talk because that is a non-negotiable. That is a dividing line that is, what do they call it in divorce court? Irreconcilable differences.
Right.
That's where you are.
Mm-hmm.
So I would ask Erdogan, do you believe that Israel has a right to exist as a Jewish state? Yes or no? Because if you say yes, they do, okay, then the next question is, do they have a right to defend themselves?
Yes.
Does an independent state have a right to defend itself? If they would say yes, okay, let's say they said yes, yes they do. All right, then it becomes a matter of people saying, well, judging them and nitpicking them on steps that they do take to defend themselves. So you have a situation where, can you imagine if 1,400 of our citizens, of American citizens, were murdered in such a heinous, brutal, barbaric fashion on one day? Let's say they were murdered by I don't know, on the Mexican border.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then our government retaliated with force to take out those people who did the murdering.
Mm-hmm.
And then the world said, no, stop, ceasefire, don't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
What you're doing is barbaric. What you're doing is, what did the Turkey president say about Israel? He said what now? A savage attack.
Yes.
Savage attack.
Most savage attack in history. One of the most.
Well, so what do you do if you're Israel? I put it this way. Imagine yourself, did I say that? I may have said this the other day, but imagine yourself, to put this in perspective, you're sitting here with your family, and then there are people threatening to kill you, and they put themselves behind women and children,
mm-hmm.
and they fire at you from those women at
Mm-hmm.
you from, or they launch rockets, or they, whatever, they're okay. All right, and you're supposed to fight back, but yet when you hit the people between you and them, you get accused of genocide.
Yes.
Well, what are you supposed to do if you're Israel?
Yeah, that's right.
You have to go after there's going to be collateral damage. There's going to be innocent people. I say innocent people. There's going to be people that die that are not combatants.
Yes.
But it's the only way to protect yourself and defend yourself from what happened on October 6th from happening again.
And the people hiding behind the women and children are still firing missiles at you.
Yes.
Still.
Yes, and you're being told by the world, stop.
Yeah. Just let them fire missiles at you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
it's crazy.
But it's irrational.
Yes.
Okay, but the reason you can make it rational in quotations is Muslims. There are Muslims who hate Jews just because they're Jews, and there's nothing you can do about that.
Yeah,
that's a fundamental, basic hatred of a group of people that makes them not human in your eyes.
Well, the president of Turkey is not the only one. The UN Secretary General yesterday, in a statement about this, and we're going to play you what he had to say, and then we're going to hear reaction from the former U.S. ambassador to Israel, David Friedman. Cut number 5.
It is important to also recognize the attacks by Hamas did not happen in a vacuum. The Palestinian people have been subjected to 56 years of suffocating occupation. They have seen their land steadily devoured by settlements and plagued by violence. Their hopes for a political solution to their plight have been vanishing.
I think he should resign tomorrow. If not, I think the United States should cut off funding of the UN. This is absolutely outrageous. It's adding such an insult to the extraordinary injury that the Israelis have suffered. Look, there's no occupation of Gaza, okay? There's not a single Jew living in Gaza. There's not a single Israeli soldier in Gaza. The reason that Gaza is living, under adverse circumstances is because of Hamas, because Hamas subjugates its own people and has chosen terrorism as the means of governing their country.
Bingo. Who was that?
That was the former U.S. ambassador to Israel, David Friedman.
Mm-hmm. That was excellent.
Yeah. He was a guest Sunday. He was one of the speakers Sunday at FRC's Stand With and Pray For Israel event in South Carolina.
He hit the nail on the head right there.
Yeah. But the U.S. Secretary General, in his statement, was basically defending what Hamas did.
Right. He said it didn't happen in a vacuum. In other words, there are reasons Hamas did that, and they're legit.
Yes, that's what he was saying. Hard to believe. And maybe we're going to get to this, Chris, but I have to say, as we sit here right now, there are another large number of anti-Israel protests happening on university campuses across this country today. It is unbelievable what is going on. You're hearing, these kids are holding signs saying, from the river to the sea.
What does that mean for those who don't know?
From the river to the sea, basically it means we're going to wipe Israel off the map.
Yeah.
That Palestinians should control that whole area, which includes the country of Israel. But also on MIT in the last couple of days, MIT, one of the premier schools in this country, universities in this country, you had students hollering out, we need the solution, making reference to the phrase final solution, which is to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. This is happening on campuses across this country today. It is just ridiculous, and it's not being condemned to the extent of university presidents saying, I'm not going to put up with this. You're not going to do this.
When asked about these pro-Palestinian and more specifically pro-Hamas demonstrations earlier this week at a press briefing, John Kirby, the spokesman for the National Security Council, said the Biden administration is not going to do anything about this because they stand behind the First Amendment.
Well, I saw where Governor DeSantis in Florida, I don't know if you have his quote, but he said that if they did this in Florida, if you have pro-Hamas rallies in Florida and these students are here on a
student visa,
he's for deporting them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I guess it'd be like he's saying if you support ISIS and you're on this is what basically he's saying, Hamas being equal to ISIS, then you're a guest. You're not a citizen.
Mm.
So people would say, well, they have First Amendment rights. That's questionable whether First Amendment rights extend to non-citizens who are here as our guests, and they're fomenting and promoting groups that are terrorist organizations. I think Governor DeSantis may have a point there.
Mm-hmm.
May have legal justification.
You know, I heard the president of Harvard the other day defending the pro-Hamas demonstrations on the Harvard campus, saying they have free speech rights. You have Kirby talking about free speech rights. Let me just put this out there. What if you had a group of students on one of these campuses who held signs saying that homosexuality is sexual perversion?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think they would allow those demonstrators?
No, they wouldn't allow that under free speech. No, they wouldn't.
They'd be gone. It would be referred to as hate speech, and we're not going to tolerate hate speech on our campus.
I thought about that when Kirby said we stand behind the First Amendment, because I was like, well, hold on now. You've
no, they don't.
Left
they do. It depends on what the First Amendment is protecting.
Yeah, selective.
First Amendment covers a lot more than just speech.
Yes.
The next few weeks, will be vital to the world, to see what happens with respect to Israel. I don't know what they're going to do militarily. Are they going to go into Israel, go into Gaza, and go street to street, block to block? Or are they going to surround Gaza? I don't know. I don't know what they haven't moved their military into Gaza completely yet.
Not completely yet. I don't think they have a choice. I think they likely will. But what we did see overnight, there was another Israeli bombing raid into Syria.
Right.
At their airport there, because that airport is known to take in weapons from Iran that are passed on to the
Could be a
terrorist groups.
staging place. That's what Israel thinks, a staging place for attacks.
Yes.
From Iran, from Hezbollah or other Iranian proxies, right?
And
right.
Israel also had to deal with Hamas terrorists in the West Bank last night. And also Hezbollah in Lebanon is now firing missiles into northern Israel. So they're already dealing with multiple fronts on this.
The West Bank, people may say, well, what's the difference between that and Gaza? Gaza is a particular place, an area down in the along the Egyptian border. And Israel gave Gaza, the Gaza Strip, you've heard it called before, gave that all to the Palestinians, was it 20 years ago or so?
2005.
Okay, almost 20 years ago. And if you remember at the time, there were Jewish people living there in the Gaza Strip, and the Israeli government uprooted them.
Yes.
And told them, you got to get out, you got to leave, because we're giving this land to the Palestinians to let them govern themselves and have their own city, their own area, the Gaza Strip. And so that's what the gentleman was talking about a few minutes ago. Well, what happened was Hamas organized, and they've been launching rockets here and there and the other, but nothing like what happened on October the 6th. But they're always a threat because they hate Jews' guts, and they want to see them all dead. That's the kind of person that's the kind of group you're dealing with, which you can't negotiate with people who have that kind of hatred and that kind of ideology.
And a lot of people believe, the radical Palestinians are not interested in a two-state solution. They almost had that several years ago when Yasser Arafat was the leader of.
But he rejected it, didn't he?
He rejected he got 90% of what he was demanding,
right,
and then rejected it,
right.
And he also died a multimillionaire because he took a lot of the money coming from the United States and Europe, and put it in his own bank account, and kept the Palestinian people poor.
That was discovered after his death, that Yasser Arafat had a lot of money in Swiss bank accounts, which are untrackable.
Yeah.
The other thing is with this, like you're saying, you're dealing with this on multiple fronts. If you're Israel. Oh, what I was going to say was, it is true that Israel is bombarding Gaza heavily right now, from what I can read and understand. That is true, and there are civilians. I say civilians, non-combatants who live in Palestine, live in the Gaza Strip. Arabs, I call them Muslim Arabs. Some call them Palestinians. They're caught in the middle of war.
Yes.
Basically, and this happens down through history, right? We saw this in Vietnam.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
You saw this. This happened in World War II. British and Americans carpet bombed Germany. Well, there were a lot of people who weren't fighting for the Nazis who died.
Yes.
Or had their homes destroyed because they were Germans. And the Nazis were Germans, and the Nazis were at war. So when the people that the Nazis were fighting or were killing and murdering and maiming, the British, the French, the Americans came over to help out. When you fight back, when you have warfare, you're fighting to win, and you can't. This sounds terrible, but you can't make a consideration on every military act that you take with the thought that maybe there are innocent people may die. If you did that, you never would fight. You never would have any kind of war. Whether righteous, even a righteous war, you would say, well, we can't do that because what if Israel said, we can't fire into Gaza. There are people living there that are not Hamas fighters. And then Hamas keeps launching weapons or keeps planning to destroy Israel, and you just say, well, we can't do anything about it because where they live, there are innocent people living.
Yeah.
Well, eventually it's going to be you that die because you're allowing them to continue unabated.
War is tough decisions every day. There's a price paid for freedom. The protected never know.
Right. Well, I think this is Tony Perkins mentioned spiritual war. I think to a large extent this is spiritual.
Yes.
And I guess you may be able to only understand this if you're a Bible-believing Christian. But Satan hates the Jews.
Yes.
And wants to see them all dead.
Yep.
And he has his proxies here on earth.
Yes.
to
Carrying that.
try to carry out that mission. What do you think about that, Fred? Is that
Yeah, it is. It's not just terrorist groups. There is news out of Richmond, California. Last night, the city council in Richmond, California, became the first city to pass a resolution condemning Israel. Let me read you the first whereas of their resolution.
okay?
Whereas the city of Richmond stands in solidarity with the Palestinian people of Gaza, who are currently facing a campaign of ethnic cleansing and collective punishment by the state of Israel. Ethnic cleansing?
They're not ethnic. If they were doing ethnic cleansing, they'd be doing that all throughout Israel.
Well, exactly.
Huh? Because there are Arabs living all over Israel, not just in Gaza. They'd be killing them too. This is not ethnic cleansing. That's a bunch of garbage.
There are Arabs that are members of the Knesset.
Yeah, ethnic cleansing is that they're just trying to stoke
Yeah.
hatred for Israel by using if they want to say Israel's firing into Gaza and innocent people are dying, okay, that would be an accurate statement to say. But to say it's ethnic cleansing,
Yes. But that passed by 5-1 in that city council last night.
A bunch of liberal wackos.
To give you guys an idea of where Richmond, California is, it's just north of Berkeley, which is known as Berkeley in many circles.
Yeah.
But it isn't not only the student protests here in the United States, and I just want to say this has been brewing for a long time. So where are these kids getting this indoctrination to hate Israel? Where are they getting it?
Same one they get to hate America.
Yes.
And to hate Christians. I mean, it's
from their professors.
Oh yeah. It's a godless, Marxist ideology.
Yes.
That is very pervasive on college campuses, and now this is in a way this is good because it's outing all these people.
It's showing the American people.
Yes.
There have been little incidents of
right.
anti-Semitism, and it makes the news for about 30 seconds, and it goes away.
I tell you,
but now we're seeing it.
I tell you another thing: these liberal Jews who are voting for Democrats.
Yeah.
Hopefully, this is time to reevaluate. Now,
there have been stories that they're kind of rethinking their.
Well, I don't think Jews make up but about 3% of the American public. Maybe not even that much. You can look and see 2%.
I'll get up.
But they vote overwhelmingly Democrat, and it's never really made a lot of sense to me because the best friends Israel has are the Republicans in America.
Yes.
For the most part. Now traditionally Democrats, a lot of Democrats have also been pro-Israel. Biden is pro-Israel. For example, they're old school Democrats. Yes, what are you going to
bingoed. In 2021, 5.8 million adults, or 2.4% of all U.S. adults, are Jewish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yet they get accused of running the country.
Yeah.
Right. Well, a lot of them are concentrated in the New York area.
Mm-hmm.
Florida.
And, well, they get their reputation because they are very smart people, and they know how to make money.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of people think that that's a stereotype that's supposed to be negative.
Yes.
And so a lot of people use that as a reason to persecute the Jews. They say, the Jews control the whatever, Hollywood, the banks, whatever.
Well, they get accused of controlling the weather now. Some of the climate conspiracy peoples.
Yeah,
which is ridiculous.
But anyway, I just wonder if there's some reevaluation going on in the American Jewish community when they see that the people, a lot of the people who they thought were their friends, on the liberal causes now turn out to be Jew haters out in the open.
Yes.
Huh?
Yeah. And I hope they take note of that.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take time out right here. We'll be back with more of today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Tim, Fred, and Chris, and we'll be back. Stay with us.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family,
freedom. American Family Radio. We all know you have tons of apps on your phone, but do you have the AFR app?
Well, I don't think I can download it.
No worries. The AFR app is available not only for Apple and Android users, but also on Amazon Alexa and Roku.
But I only want to listen to music, and
The new music option allows you to stream music anytime you want.
I'm downloading it now.
Download the AFR app today at afr.net. This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
This is American Family News. I'm Steve Jordahl. The GOP has its fourth nominee for Speaker since Kevin McCarthy was ousted over 3 weeks ago. Fox's Ryan Schmeltz has the latest from Capitol Hill.
Louisiana Congressman Mike Johnson plans on heading to the floor today with the hope of becoming Speaker of the House. After winning the Republican nomination behind closed doors, Johnson says the party is united.
I'm honored to have the support of my colleagues, and what they understand about this is servant leadership. We're going to serve the people of this country.
The 51-year-old Johnson is the current vice chair of the House Republican Conference and joined Congress in 2017. He's considered to be a staunch conservative, so it remains to be seen if enough moderate members will vote for him. He can only afford to lose a few votes because of the slim majority Republicans have in the House. On Capitol Hill, Ryan Schmelz, Fox News.
The Israeli-Hamas conflict continues to escalate, with fighting stretching into the third week. Adele Raymer was a survivor of the conflict. She joined Fox and Friends to talk about the Hamas attack that started the war.
For years, the Hamas have been saying that they want to wipe the Jews out of Israel, kill us all, throw us out of Israel. They've been saying it. Sinwar years ago said, we're going to come in there, we're going to cut out your hearts. They did it. October 7th.
Raymer says she hid from Hamas militants for over 9 hours to avoid being killed. The death toll from the fighting continues to rise, with at least 33 Americans confirmed dead in the conflict. Israel has been ramping up attacks on the Gaza Strip and limiting supplies in the region. Palestinians say they're running out of food, water, medicine, and gasoline, but they continue to throw rockets into Israel. The White House said Tuesday that prudent contingency planning is underway to evacuate Americans from the Middle East in case the Israel-Hamas war spreads into a broader regional conflict. White House National Security Council spokesman John Kirby stressed there are currently no active efforts to evacuate Americans from the region beyond charter flights the U.S. government began operating earlier this month out of Israel. A federal court has stepped in to protect a Catholic clinic's ability to help women reverse the effects of the first abortion pill. AFN's Chris Woodward has the story.
Bella Health and Wellness is challenging a new Colorado law that forbids doctors and nurses to give progesterone to help women who took the first of 2 abortion pills, even if they were tricked or forced into taking it. Attorney Laura Slavis of Beckett, the law firm representing Bella Health and Wellness.
The judge issued a decision that Colorado is likely violating our clients' free exercise rights 3 different ways. So the court makes clear that not just one way, but actually Colorado is infringing on our clients' First Amendment rights in 3 different ways, which requires the court to issue a preliminary injunction to protect our clients while this litigation is ongoing.
Colorado has 30 days from the date of the ruling to decide whether to appeal.
The practice of providing progesterone to counteract the effects of mifepristone is backed by credible scientific evidence, and there is no evidence to suggest that this is anything but a low-risk treatment that is effective at potentially maintaining a healthy pregnancy.
I'm Chris Woodward.
Boeing is reporting a loss of $1.64 billion in the third quarter. The company said Wednesday it delivered fewer planes than a year ago, especially its bestseller, the 737 MAX. Boeing is lowering its forecast of 737 production for this year, and Boeing is reporting another loss in its contract with the Air Force to build 2 new presidential jets. Those 747s are modified to become Air Force One planes. And finally, dozens of U.S. states, including California, New York, Arizona, and Indiana, are suing Meta platforms for harming young people's mental health and contributing to the youth mental health crisis by knowingly designing features on Instagram and Facebook that addict children to the platforms. The lawsuits in federal court in California also claims that Meta routinely collects data on children under 13 without their parents' permission. For American Family News, I'm Steve Jordan.
The LGBT movement isn't new. Since 1968, it's been making its way into the Christian church, and now we're seeing parts of the church starting to affirm the quote-unquote gay Christian lifestyle. How did we get here? In the book Dangerous Affirmation, author M.D. Perkins sheds light on how Christians are being lured away from God's truth and calls us to faithfulness to God's design. You can get the ebook version of Dangerous Affirmation today at resources.afa.net.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildman, president of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the radio program Today's Issues on American Family Radio. I am Tim Wildman with Fred Jackson and Steve Paisley. Jordahl joined us now.
Good morning.
Good morning, Steve. So, fellas, with respect to the weather, I think we're enjoying here in the South. I think most people are a really warm, unusually warm October.
Yes.
Now, it's not ever cold in the South till, I'm going to say South being Kentucky down, till probably January, I would say, what people would call cold. Now, I know people in Montana would laugh.
Well, they would laugh today because they're getting 2 feet of snow.
Well, so the laugh's on them. How you like them apples? Deal with that for 6 more months. What now? What you telling me? What now? What's happening?
Snow hits northern Cascades and Rockies in the first major storm of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And according to the Associated Press, some higher elevations, northern Rockies could get snow totals of 2 feet or more. And Cascade Mountains, 18 inches in the mountains of Montana. So there you have it.
Of course, they are used to that in that part of the country.
Yeah,
and of course, a lot of the snow skiing resorts, they look forward to early snows, right?
Yep.
Yeah. What I resent is Canada's getting blamed again, as if we create the cold air,
Coming, yeah, it is. They do always say coming down from Canada is an Arctic blast, Fred, that y'all let through your borders.
Well, in defense of Canada, it starts in Alaska. It just passes through Canada.
Oh. So, and Alaska sends it through Canada down to the lower 48.
Yeah, there's a pipeline.
Oh, man. But it's been very, of course, for much of the country also, I think I'm right on this, it's been very dry.
Extremely dry, which is why places like we were talking to our news anchor in Texas this morning, that hurricane that just moved through Mexico.
Yeah, it's a Category 5 now, hitting Acapulco.
Yes, it's coming through there, but it's going to give some much-needed rain to those dry areas of the country.
Okay, so that's going to come up through the southern part of Texas?
Yes, okay. And they're going to get some rain there, and they need it desperately.
Yeah, absolutely.
Super dry there.
Absolutely, super dry.
Yeah.
So we'll pay attention to what happens there.
Everybody always talks about the weather, but nobody does anything about it.
That's a good one. Where'd you hear that one?
I don't know.
All right, Steve, go.
All right. Hey, so Mike Johnson is the new speaker-elect from the Republican Party. He was doing a press conference this morning, and one of the reporters kind of asked him, this is where they're coming from. I think you can hear this question. Let's listen to Cut 11.
Mr. Johnson, you helped lead the efforts to overturn the 2020 election results. Will you
That's all the Republicans at the press conference booing down the reporter who started her question with, Mr. Johnson, you helped lead the effort to overturn the 2020 elections. What do you – and that's all she got out before they booed him down.
Boot her down.
Boot
wouldn't it?
her down. I'm sorry.
Yes. Not surprising, a question like that coming from the liberal media.
This is the gift that keeps on giving for Democrats.
Yes.
Absolutely. Hey, you want to see real must-see TV that's not on TV? Donald Trump is in court again today, as he's been always. It's really interesting. Every day he comes out and says something, and every day Letitia James, who's on the other side of the desk.
She's the AG for the state of New York.
She comes out, she posts something on social media that says, oh, we're going to get him, we're doing our job. She's gloating. But today, the prosecution is bringing in Mark Meadows, who was his former chief of staff, at one point in time.
This is the New York case, correct?
The New York case.
Can I interrupt just a second to ask a question?
Yes.
All right, so the Mark Meadows, the former chief of staff for former President Trump, I know he was granted immunity for testifying in the federal cases, I think, but this is a state case in New York, right? Is this having to do with his businesses and the fraud they're accused? The state of New York's accusing him of. Is that what we're talking about here?
This is the case that is with Jack Smith, the one about
that's not New York,
6th, and Trump isn't there.
That's why Tim said what he did.
Yeah.
So
Good job,
you want to continue with this story,
No,
or you
not
want
right now?
What do you?
Well, but
I'm just trying to help you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Actually,
that's what I tell my grandkids when I eat their dessert. I'm just trying to help you finish it off.
Let me back up here.
Okay.
You see the shirt I'm wearing today, Tim? You didn't
Yes, I
comment
did.
on it.
Paisley.
No, it's
my
not.
bad.
It's
not paisley.
It's a bunch of flowers.
It's flowery.
This is my wake up and smell the roses shirt because I'm coming in this morning at 3:00 so that I can do the morning run of anchoring. I'm a little punched.
I understand. I understand. But what is your?
Well, Mark Meadows has been given immunity in this case, and he's going to testify against Donald Trump. They've turned Mark Meadows.
Okay. This is a lot of this stuff gets really complicated down in the weeds, and when you talk about court cases and charges and lawyers and plea deals and testifying for or against, I mean, it just gets where you just go, stop. I just want to watch Andy Griffith, okay? Okay. But trying to figure out all this and keep up with all this is a major task and headache. Keep it all straight.
As I have demonstrated.
Yeah, you demonstrated right there. But so you're right. Mr. Trump is in New York, the state of New York, and that case has to do with the charges brought against him by the Attorney General there of alleged business fraud.
Yes.
Right? Am I right?
Yes.
That really has nothing to do with, and I'm not trying to restate your error,
right,
Steve.
But you were going to anyway, and
that has nothing. That has nothing to do with former Chief of Staff Mark Meadows. No. Okay, but it is. So that's a whole separate court case going on right now. By the way, Michael Cohen, Trump's former fixer.
Yes.
He was in court yesterday, and they faced off.
That's kind of where I got mixed up.
That would have probably been interesting TV right
stupor.
there. Mm-hmm. A couple.
There's a debate going on with regards to evaluation of Trump properties.
Yeah.
And Michael Cohen is testifying that Trump made him increase the value of a property.
Right, beyond what they were worth.
Yes. Yes.
So that's what that is about. And see how interesting that is? Does that not grab you right there? Don't you want to just sit and watch that kind of TV right there if it were on TV? Maybe on TV, I don't know.
Right up there with watching paint dry.
But, okay, so put that aside. But the big news you're trying to get at, Steve, is that former Chief of Staff for former President Trump, Mark Meadows, has been granted immunity by the federal prosecutor, Jack Smith.
In the case of January 6th.
Is it J6 or is it the obstruction of justice Florida case?
It's January 6th.
Huh?
Well, at least it's January 6th.
Okay, the January 6th case. So I don't know. I know the assumption is, well, that means he's going to testify, quote, against President Trump. Maybe so, but I would argue, I would ask this question: what if Mark Meadows has just agreed to tell the truth? I mean, and let the chips fall where they may. It's really not up to Mark Meadows to decide whether he's not the jury. He's not going to be deciding whether or not the former president is guilty of the charges against him or not, right?
Let me channel Abe Hamilton here, and I'm not a lawyer, but I think I hear him saying you never put a witness up on the stand unless you know exactly what they're going to say.
Yeah. I think this case is going to come down to the conversations that Trump had in the hours leading up to that rally in Washington, D.C. on January the 6th, and also the hours right after the crowds went up to Capitol Hill as to what Trump said. So there's always been a bit of a debate on the conversations, how far Trump went to encourage people to do something, and then afterwards to encourage them to back away. There's been conversations, and I think that's what this is about.
Well, that and according to a report that I saw, which can't be verified, it was like in the Daily Mail. So, I'm putting a lot of confidence in this story being true. And it may not be. We'll have to find out when Mark Meadows testifies, because it'll have to be public testifying, right?
Yes.
Okay. He said in this story I saw that he told President Trump that he lost twice, at least twice. He told him, Mr. President, there's not enough evidence of fraud to overturn the election. It appears we've lost, something to that effect. Mm-hmm. That's what Mark Meadows allegedly said, which may be the value that the federal prosecutor, that may be part of the value that they may think that brings to their case in January 6th. But I don't know, again, I don't know whether that helps or hurts former President Trump in a case, because, President Trump may say, well, yeah, he told me I lost, but I didn't believe him. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. It's not illegal to not believe somebody.
Yeah. So I don't know whether that this, but what you guys are saying, and you've talked to Abe, who's an attorney, that when a prosecution, quote, flips a defendant, that they're going to get something that's going to help their case.
Yes.
Right?
Don't do it unless they do.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I understand that. And you got to think for Mr. Meadows, Mark Meadows, who's from North Carolina. He was a longtime conservative leader in the House of Representatives, and Trump chose him as his chief of staff, number 3, right? Wasn't he number 3?
As in the third chief of
staff? Third
staff?
chief of staff. No, or was he 4? 2.
It's hard to keep track, isn't
Well, Trump went through, he had the, who did he have first as his chief of staff? Didn't it? I think Trump went through
John
3.
Kelly.
Was he the first one?
President Trump, 2017, he took office, and John Kelly was his chief of staff, then Mick Mulvaney, then Mark Meadows, then Ron Klain. No, Joe Biden had Ron Klain. So he had 3. John Kelly, Mick Mulvaney, and Mark Meadows.
See, that's the problem. One of the problems for former President Trump is nobody works for him long.
Yeah.
Not many people do, because for whatever reason, but you go through 3 chief of staff in 4 years, that's, and then when they went out the door, he started slamming them, calling them names. I mean, that's a story for another day. But anyway,
that's a story for any day.
Yeah, but that's one of Mr. Trump's weaknesses is that he acts like a third grader a lot of times. But we all know that, right?
Yes.
That would take that into consideration. But the problem, but he and Trump and Meadows evidently got along really well, and Trump complimented Meadows on several occasions. So, but now Mr. Meadows has to consider his situation. And listen, what are the chances of me going to federal prison for the rest of my life, and I get found guilty in one of these trials that a jury convicts me of? he has to weigh that out. What are my legal bills going to be? Are they going to be so insurmountable that it's going to ruin my life, ruin my family's versus what can I say to get immunity, to get these potential life-altering charges off of me, right? I would just say in a situation like that, if you agree to tell the truth about something, I just don't see that as, quote, flipping.
No.
Do you, Fred?
No, not at all. I'm going to tell the special prosecutor, Mr. Smith, in this case, everything that I know, not holding back. This is what was said.
That's what he's agreed to.
This is what was said at this stage.
Right.
This is what is said at this meeting.
I don't think it just me, and I'm just one person. I don't think this necessarily at this point. You look at that and you go, that helps or hurts the former president in his case. That's my view.
Yep.
The hedge against someone getting up on the stage and just saying anything to get them out of a charge is that if the defense can prove that he's telling something that's untrue, he has lied in court, and that's its own penalty. So,
you mean if Meadows? You're saying if Meadows gets up there, he's agreed to this immunity,
and he just say anything they want. I'll say anything you want.
Well, but you can't lie,
right?
Because if you lie and you're found out and you perjure yourself, then you're going to the federal pen,
right?
For violating your immunity agreement. Is that right?
That is correct.
So
they think they have something. They wouldn't do this if it was
okay. Well, we'll wait and see.
Yeah.
When does that trial start?
This is a special prosecutor investigating right now.
Talking about the J6 trial?
Yes.
And it's in D.C.
Yeah, that investigation is continuing. Well, Smith is looking at a couple of things.
Court?
Yeah,
No.
Smith is looking at a couple of things.
It's a he's been indicted. It's not an investigation. I mean, maybe it is an investigation, but Trump's been indicted in that case in the D.C. court.
Yes.
They are in the middle of proposing.
By a grand jury. Go ahead.
They're in the middle of proposing dates. This is August. They were proposing dates for the trial, and Jack Smith wants it to start January 2nd, 2024. I think that the president would like to hold it off until after the election.
Well, that's not going to happen.
Well, no.
But the judge has not said when it'll start? Is that what
As of the latest news article I can pull up right now.
Okay. Well, I know he has the which is it? The Georgia case is set to begin trial in March, right? I think the Georgia state trial about the RICO trial.
Yes.
See how fun this is to talk about?
Well,
we've just so
remember last week we had the stories though of some of the defendants were ready to pick a jury at last Friday in one of the cases.
Yeah.
And they made
Which
the plea
case?
and they made the plea deal. This was
talking about Georgia?
Georgia, yes.
Yeah, we've had 3 plea deals. Jenna
Yes.
Ellis yesterday. Jenna
Right.
was on the air with us, our early morning host, and so she did her plea deal yesterday, and then you had Cheeseborough.
Yes.
What was
on
his first name?
Thursday or Friday.
And then you had Sidney Powell.
Yes. So that all happened late last week on
Cheeseborough is his name. I forgot the
Cheeseborough.
joke.
He was actually in the courtroom when they were going to start jury selection, and that's when he made his plea.
Yeah, that was last week, right
That was
after
last
Sidney
week.
Powell did.
Yes.
So
There's
Hey,
a
listen,
lot going on.
Let me just say this, and I don't want to talk about it in detail because I'm not smart enough to do this. I would just say this: before you make a judgment about whether it's right or wrong for somebody to take a plea deal,
Kenneth
Cheeseborough.
Sorry.
Before you make a judgment, because I had a couple of people email me this morning, why did Jenna do this? Why did she take a plea deal?
Yeah.
Well, listen, I would say, first of all, be careful about making judgments and pronouncements about people's motives. When you don't know what the whole situation is, and you don't know the details, and you don't know the pressure they're under, and you don't know you're not the one writing checks for their legal fees, which people say, well, these things can mount up to the hundreds of thousands of dollars pretty quick. Look at former President Trump. He's having to use almost all the money donated to him to pay his legal fees. right now.
Yeah.
Maybe not almost all the money, but a huge percentage of it, right?
Mm.
So that just shows you if a billionaire has to be a little bit worried about legal fees, imagine somebody like Jenna or Sidney Powell or who's just an individual out here. Now, they did have a, not a GoFundMe, but something similar to that to make donations to their, these people, to their, these individuals to their legal defense fund. But I'm just saying, before you make announcements or judgments about whether you think that's right or wrong, they should or shouldn't have done that, you don't know a whole situation, okay?
Right.
And if you were under the threat of going to prison for 5 years or so, or you were under the threat of being wiped out financially, I'm not saying that it is lawfare in a lot of times, and it's unfair the way people are treated a lot of times in courtrooms, but that's the way it is. So if you're under that kind of stress, you have to consider, what are my options?
Yes.
Are my options, okay, the prosecutor over here has offered me a plea deal to say this, that, or the other in exchange for I don't go to jail,
yes,
or I don't lose my home, okay? Now, I'm not saying you exchange that for a lie.
No.
Huh?
No.
What am I hearing?
No, it's
okay.
Didn't turn my.
I'm not suggesting you lie, but if you can get out of that situation and maintain the truth or your integrity without compromising that, then I say you gotta do that.
Well,
in my opinion,
you take Sidney Powell as an example.
Yeah,
68 years old.
I know.
She doesn't want to go to prison.
That's the risk you take when you go to trial. I'm saying.
Yes.
People say, "Well, I'd go to trial," and okay. Well, I understand that, but you're running the risk in Fulton County, Georgia.
Yes.
It's probably going to be all Democrats in the jury.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, that's 90% of Fulton County, Georgia are going to be Democrats. So you've got to say, what are my chances of getting, a trial there that's going to go my way? I could be convicted and I go to prison.
And it's a serious charge. Racketeering is.
Yeah.
That's a serious charge.
Yeah. This all goes back to it being. I think it's an overcharge. I don't even know why this is even a case to begin with, especially not a RICO case, because it just doesn't. To me, it doesn't sound like it rises to the level of that kind of prosecution.
Well, you think of racketeering, you think of mafia,
drug cartels.
Hardly.
Well, they're already bringing out old Civil War laws to try to keep him from running. So they're.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm just saying, before you say, well, this person shouldn't do this or they shouldn't do that. What's the old saying? Walk a mile in that person's shoes.
I was just thinking that.
Or the Indians say, walk a mile in my moccasins.
Yes.
There's a moral to that story, I could tell you. I got a story that promotes that moral.
Okay.
That value. You want to hear it while we end the show here?
Sure.
So one time, Allison and I, my wife, this is 25 years ago, we were driving from Knoxville to Nashville. I'd spoke in Virginia. And we were driving down the interstate, I-40, toward Nashville, and I pull up behind an 18-wheeler, and I try to pass him. Well, when I get up to the cab, I noticed that there was a state trooper there right in front of the truck. Okay? Well, I'm not going to pass a state trooper going 75 or 80 or 80. You know what I'm saying? How you doing, sir? I'm going to pass you right here, just blowing by you speed and invite a ticket, right? So you know what I do? I stay even with the truck for about a mile or two. Well, this fella pulls up behind me, and he's very upset. I'm looking at him in the rearview mirror, and he's like throwing up his hands. And he sees my license tag too. You know, people from Tennessee, they look down on people from Mississippi. We're really rednecks, okay? And they're uppity rednecks in Tennessee. So he's looking at me, raising his hands. He's getting all upset and angry, and I have to go on for a couple of miles like this. And finally, I back off and ease off, and I get behind the truck. Well, he blows by me and looks at me like, you idiot. So he gets to the front of the cab, and guess what he does? He stops. He slows down because
Even
he's
with
a
his truck.
And guess what I do? I pull up behind him. And you know what I do? I raise my hands. And I look at him like, come on, man. You wanted to go by. Here you are. Why aren't you going by? The moral of that story is be careful about making judgments about people and their situations and their actions when you don't know all the facts.
Absolutely.
There you go. It's
all
a
right.
good example.
Will that preach?
That does.
All right.
Doug Hunt.
See you tomorrow, everybody.
This is Abraham Hamilton III with AFR, and we're sending Bibles. Here's Michael with Bible League International.
Abraham, I know our hearts and prayers are with those affected by the Israeli conflict. You know, when I was in the Middle East, I met 14-year-old Ahmed, a Syrian refugee whose father died fighting for ISIS. His mother was radicalized. She had 8 children. A long story short, she became a believer after 2 Christian women taught her to read and write because she had been denied an education. She prayed nonstop for the salvation of her children to happen for 7 of them. The 8th child was Ahmed. He was going to be a